Hi, I'm so happy to be here. So has anyone in the audience tonight read Pride and Prejudice? Yeah? Well, for those of you who haven't, it's basically the story of how a smart, funny girl ensnares and ultimately transforms a very rich douchebag. If there are any literary scholars here, you might know that douchebag is not the term Jane Austen used to describe this man. No, but the fact is I do, because Fitzwilliam Darcy, which is of course his name, is a douchebag. He does not like unrefined women, he does not like small talk, and he does not like the poor. Now, to make that more relatable for a modern audience, that'd be kind of like someone saying he doesn't like basic bitches, or he's too authentic for social media, or he doesn't like the poor. He's a huge douche, but Lizzie Bennet, the main character, is this smart, funny girl, and she totally transforms him into her dream guy. Now, I read this when I was 14, and I related to Lizzie a lot because I, too, am smart and funny. So I wanted to have my own Pride and Prejudice romance, and what I needed to do that was to find a douchebag. I was in high school, so it was not very difficult. I'm in Spanish class one day, and I'm paired with this kid, David, for a project. So I turn to him, and I'm like, David, do you have a Facebook that I can contact you on for a project? And he looks at me, and he says, I don't have Facebook. Facebook is for conformists. I had found my douchey Darcy. So in the book, Lizzie isn't like talking to Darcy to change him. She's just so awesome that he's drawn to her, he's watching her, and that changes him. Her goodness changes him. And I wanted that experience. So I never talked directly to David in my attempts to change him. I would just talk around him and hope he was listening intently. What that meant in practice was that I had to know where he was in a room relative to me at all times. I had to know his voice the way a newborn's mother knows that baby's voice. And sometimes that was great. Once at a party, I heard his voice, so I turned around and I saw him pull up his shirt to reveal Abercrombie & Fitch branded boxers, reach inside those boxers, and pull out a handle of Svedka. It's a wonderful man. But sometimes it wasn't great. Because what I learned is that if you're focused on someone and you're watching them all the time, you will fall in love with them. Not love the way you love a person who you like, but love the way you love a fictional character, because you're watching them, you're empathizing with them, and you start to feel very tender towards this person who maybe you don't even really know or really like. And that was what's happening to me. And the gravity of that kind of hit me when I was getting ready for this Christmas party in my junior year. I'm getting ready, and the song Last Christmas comes on. Not the Wham version, not even the Taylor Swift cover, but the Glee version. Because, and this is crucial, I was listening to the Glee Christmas album. So Last Christmas comes on, and I start crying because I realize that I've been in love with David for over a year, AKA since last Christmas. And I feel so hollow, because I've had this very rich experience of falling in love, but with someone who I don't even know or like, and who doesn't know me at all. And I just felt like I had wasted my time, and I didn't want to waste anymore. I felt like I was ready to get over him, and even if I wasn't ready, the time had fucking come. So I tried to stop thinking about him, I tried to move on, and that made space in my life for some new friends, and I started hanging out with Alan. Alan was actually David's best friend. But crucially, unlike David, Alan was not a douchebag. He did not have any animus for basic bitches, social media, or the poor. We got along great. So early senior year, I kind of had this suspicion that Alan had a crush on me because his mother had told my mother that he had a crush on me. So I get a call a few days later, and it's Alan, and he sounds very nervous, almost like he's reading off a script. He's like, hey, how are you? I'm like, hey, Alan, I'm good, what's up? And he says, I was just wondering if you would like to go to the movies with me this weekend. And I thought about that. It'd be very fun to go to the movies with Alan that weekend. It'd be very fun to hang out with Alan more. It'd be very fun to be Alan's girlfriend. But then I thought about how if I were Alan's girlfriend, I might also end up spending some time with Alan's best friend, David. And I might even develop my own relationship with Alan's best friend, David. And one day, Alan's best friend, David, could be my friend too. And I felt that same hollow feeling from before because I realized, one, I wasn't good enough for Alan because I would always have this huge secret that I could never tell him. And two, I didn't want to hang out with David. Like, number one, I never liked David to begin with. That was the whole point of how this began. He's a douchebag. But number two, he had meant so much for me for so long, and to think of hanging out with him as if none of that had ever happened felt ridiculous and embarrassing and mortifying. So I said no to Alan, and he and I have not spoken since high school. But for what it's worth, I also have not spoken to David since high school. And I think people would say the moral of my story is that you should not project your fantasies onto other people. That's a fair reading. I think people would also say that you shouldn't have romantic fantasies like mine in the first place, that they're bad for you. And I take some issue with that because I think it's unrealistic. There's so many romantic stories, and not just romantic stories, but Pride and Prejudice romantic stories in our culture. So many, they're everywhere, where the smart, funny girl fixes the douchey guy. It happens in Gilmore Girls with Rory and Logan. It happens in Harry Potter with Lily and James. It happens in Matthew McConaughey's entire filmography. It's a basis for a man's career, it really is. And I think the reason that is Pride and Prejudice is about someone seeing your inner goodness and having that inspire them to change. And that's a compelling message. Whether or not you like Matthew McConaughey, Pride and Prejudice, or Harry Potter, that's captivating. And it captivates me to this day. It's the reason that I still read Pride and Prejudice regularly. It's the reason I still talk about it regularly. It's the reason that I would still love to have a Pride and Prejudice romance. I'm 23, which is 9 years older than I was when I first read this book, and I would still love to be the smart, funny girl that changes some douchey guy. So I guess what I'm saying is, if there's any men in the audience who don't like basic bitches, who are not on social media, or who just hate the poor, come find me after the show, and I can fix you.
I'm gonna make you